and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sam Zagar and we are carrying on our money conversation that's gone on for the last 2 videos. So this is part 3 of making money. Now we have touched on the not self, the true self, open and undefined centers, defined centers. In particular, what about these open or undefined centers that Ra terms the profit centers? In our last video, we spoke about the head center. We're going to carry on through the centers, and the next one we're going to move down to is the Ajna. Now, the not self of the undefined Ajna is this need to be sure, this need to be certain. A lot of the times I hear people use language that really feels like they're mixing up different centers. A lot of the times people will use the word prove, that really belongs to the ego center, and they'll attach it to other centers. So like trying to prove that you're certain. And I want to be careful about using language like that because it gets kind of muddy sounding. There's no proving, really. No, grain of salt. There's no ego proving in the Ajna. There is one kind of proof, and that's going to be logical collective proof. When we're looking at the Ajna and we look at what kind of circuitry it can either have individual circuitry or it can have collective circuitry. Now, half of that collective circuitry is going to be abstract and the other half is going to be logical, rational. Now, the thing with logical circuitry is it does have to prove its logic. But even that is quite different from what we're talking about when we talk about the ego center wanting to prove something. And really, when we're talking about proving through the ego center, we want to tie that to words like improve and approval. It's a lot easier to understand what the ego center does when we say, you know, are you trying to improve yourself in order to gain someone else's approval, really so that you don't get abandoned, so that you don't have to question your self-worth. That's very different from needing to prove logical concepts. When we're talking about proving through logic, it's about running tests, changing variables, rerunning the test, seeing what kind of same results that we can get. Can we prove that the logic can actually hold up? Now, really, when we're talking about the Ajna, in general, this is wanting to be sure, wanting to have certainty. I really look at gate 17 a lot for trying to anchor this one in because 17 is this gate of opinions, really. I'm going to reduce this one down to one word. 17 is about opinions. But when we think about what opinions are, there's something that usually gets us into arguments. I want you to think about the Ajna and arguments for a minute. Because while the Ajna is not the throat center, it is attached to it. And the Ajna represents the most advanced awareness center when we were 7-centered. So being 7-centered and having only the Ajna for our awareness, that says that the greatest sense of awareness we used to have was a mental, periodical kind of awareness where we could look at things over all time. That's really what Ajna awareness is, the ability to look at things over and over and over and over again throughout all time. It's really always collecting data. But because the Ajna trumps for the 7-centered bodygraph in terms of awareness, we can see how that is still having an impact or a long-term effect on the world that we live in. And the world that we live in says that logical, mental, rational reasoning is kind of like the peak of our intelligence. Now, I'd like to counter that and say the peak of our intelligence, now that we're 7-centered, is going to belong to the solar plexus and it's going to belong to emotional intelligence. And that's how we actually have communion with each other. Ajna awareness isn't really good for communion. Really, it's good for contrasting, for comparing. And there's a tricky thing with arguing for opinions. An opinion is only good until you get a better one. I used to have a lot of opinions that I don't have anymore because they've been replaced by different ones. Over all time, you can come to new awarenesses. So there's a tricky thing, you know, with being certain in the Ajna. It's temporary, it's fleeting. You know, the sense of certainty that comes from the Ajna is short-lived. It's only until more information comes along, more awareness comes along. So if I wanted to sell somebody in a way that was going to take advantage of their not self, I would make them really doubt what they understand. You know, think about how we conceptualize things, our understanding, how we see something come together, a construct come together. If I want to take advantage of the fact that you are not self and I want to profit off of that, I'm going to make you feel very insecure about what you don't know. Now, if I'm not a jerk, if I actually have the ability to help you make this transformation, and I'm able to profit from it in the meantime because I am sharing my wisdom with you that has some value, and you compensate me for that awareness or for that guidance. If I want to sell to an undefined or open Ajna in a way that is good for both of us, what I'm really going to be selling you is how to not be hijacked by the insecurity of this. I'm going to help you feel okay for knowing what you know, for understanding what you understand, for being at where you're at in this process. I'm going to make it okay that you think the way that you think, that you have. Now, here's the interesting thing. You know, if I take a word like doubt, you know, if I want to say it's okay for you to have doubts, then I'm going to make it be okay for you to not know what it is that you think that you need to know. A really great example of this comes from, you know, job training I would have had as a teenager. Customer service training, where I was told, if you don't have the answer that a customer is looking for, tell them that. Tell them that you'll find someone who does know the answer. You know, I'm sorry I don't know where that is. Let me find someone who does. So many of us, though, we have this fear of saying, I don't know. Because really what that fear is like you're admitting to somebody else that you lack intelligence, that you're stupid, that you're ignorant. Like there are so many negative words that go with that. And I also think that in the society that we live in, I mean, ignorance is a really fast way to be canceled. Cancel culture is a thing that exists, and if you say the wrong thing, if you believe the wrong thing, you're opening yourself up to be attacked. And a lot of the times, the ways that people go about attacking each other, it doesn't actually lead to greater connection, greater communion, greater understanding, greater acceptance. There is a lot of shaming, there's a lot of victim stuff, there's a lot of guilt. There are so many reasons why we might be afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that. I don't understand that. I don't know about that. And yet, if I meet someone who can say to me, actually, I don't know anything about that. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that comes together. I can't understand that. You know, when I meet somebody that has that level of honesty with me, I trust them. I trust them differently. And part of what I trust is that they're not trying to manipulate me or convince me that they are more than they are in some way. I see them as real. I see them as very authentic. I know that when I started recording this today, I thought that I was going to get 4 centers in, and I thought I was going to get 4 centers in with roughly this being a 10-minute video. I can tell that I have taken the majority of the time already talking about the Ajna. What's nice about this is this isn't coming from a really technical, mechanical education type place. It's not like this is the Ajna and these are the gates. And this conversation is much more about living your design versus learning about your design. It is one thing to say that, the undefined Ajna is always wanting to be sure, doesn't want anybody to know when it's unsure. But if you're someone with an undefined Ajna, it's one thing to hear that, it's another thing to put that into practice. Putting that into practice, experimenting with your design, is actually how you learn. There's a big difference between hearing something and knowing the words and actually living something, trusting the words, having them be embodied in you. I can say, if someone asks me, what's the not self of the Ajna? I could put the answer on and I could pass my little pop quiz. But am I actually passing in terms of living this experiment? This requires a lot of conscious awareness. I could just for today give myself the exercise of don't let my not self, undefined Ajna get the better of me. Okay, so how am I going to practice that today? I'm going to notice when moments of insecurity come up in me where I go, ooh, I should understand that. I'm going to notice when negative not self language comes in that sounds like what the not self Ajna would say. I'm going to be extra aware of any negative not self talk that says I'm ignorant, I'm dumb, I'm uneducated, I don't get it, I don't understand. If I start to hear myself think or feel that kind of energy, can it grab my awareness and go, oh, this is a not self problem. Okay, how am I going to get through this? Okay, am I attempting to demonstrate to someone that I have a good opinion? Am I arguing on my behalf? Am I getting stuck in seven-centered arguing? Do I need to show that I'm right in order to feel okay about my intelligence? Do I need to be more right than others in order to feel good about myself? Am I afraid to say what needs to be said because I think that people won't understand me? You see how much confusion, the head center had pressure, the head center has a lot of anxiety, but the Ajna has a lot of confusion, distortion, doubt. If I start to lean into that energy, that's not me, really, in theory. An undefined Ajna is not me, okay? So the more me I am, I stick to my own definition. I am a spleen, I am an ego. I am a projector, I'm a splenic projector, I'm an ego projector. Whenever I get insecure about, oh, I'm not this thing, it's well, what are you? Okay, I'm this thing. Is this thing interfacing with the thing that's making me feel insecure in the right way? Am I getting stuck in a conversation where I need to defend my intelligence because I'm getting insecure, but nobody actually invited me into this conversation? So am I already not self-talking, and that's being amplified with also not self concepts coming out of me? Am I not being recognized in this conversation, and I'm trying to convince someone of something to recognize me? I can see all the ways in which I might be acting not authentic to who I am, and how that might not get me the results that I'm looking for. Now, what results am I looking for? My signature. My signature is always the result I'm looking for. Likely it is also the result that you are looking for. Living your design is very different from reading about your design, from hearing about your design. There is constant mental awareness to put into this. It's not that you have to be neurotic. I'm not saying think about every single thing, try and control every single thing, try and plan all the things. That's definitely not what I'm saying. That doesn't belong in human design. What I am saying is it takes work in the beginning to have a level of awareness and to develop that level of awareness. And that's where the real truth of this experiment is.